I'm your host, Dane McCarthy, broadcasting to you from the bowels of America, deep in the heart of Ohio. And today is June 20th, 2014. And wow, are things hopping in the United States and the world. The unexpected, but really quite expected implosion of the Maliki government, the puppet in Iraq, is happening. It is ongoing. They're fighting for territory right down to the edges of Baghdad already. This group, ISIS, has apparently come out of nowhere. Actually, not true at all, but in terms of the mainstream media, yes, ISIS has almost literally come out of nowhere. Actually, where they came out of was Syria. You have groups that were being supported with material support, and you can read that as weapons and training by the CIA, by the US government, and they were making their bid to overthrow Syria and the Assad government. But things did not go so well. The American people and the British people and the French people and all the other NATO alliance people, the governments that maybe are not fed up with war, but the people are fed up with war. They are refusing to believe the lies that are being promulgated daily, on a daily basis, from the Congress, from the President, from the mainstream media. They're refusing to believe it. They're the most cynical that we have seen, probably in the history of the United States. My understanding is that the US Congress now has an approval rating of some ungodly low number, like 3% or 4% or something like that. In other words, virtually no one believes most of what Congress is saying. They don't believe that they have the best interests of the American people at heart. They believe that they are being controlled from another group, a higher group, and this would be the owner class or the criminal class of the power elite. The power elite being the long-time definition of that very small group at the top of American society, the aristocrats of chaos, the criminals of the mafia of choice, the mafia of mafia, the people who are so wealthy that they feel that they can literally change the world to their whim, whatever they consider to be their best interests. They believe that they can change the world in order to cater to their latest whim or their trend or whatever is that they believe in at the moment, whether they would be Christians, whether they would be Satanists, whether they would be just simply some sort of New Age. They have the power, they have the money in order to make or remake the world in their own image. They almost literally believe that they have become godlike. I've seen this happen with people. When they get a little bit of success, a little bit of money, a little bit of power, maybe some property and a nice car and a nice job, with maybe a little bit of control over maybe their underlings, then it all goes to their head and they become insufferable egotists, selfish, uncaring. They believe they're superior. This is an illusion that unfortunately happens to people when they're graced by the universe, and it all goes to hell eventually, goes to heck in a handbasket. But for a while, they're riding high, and they think they can call the shots, and they feel that they deserve to call the shots. This is what happens to people who have just a little bit of power and a little bit of money. Not everyone. Some people have more sense than this. But even if people believe or have an illusion that they're successful, sometimes it goes to their head. And it's destructive to them and to those who are around them. Not to mention obnoxious. Can you imagine how people must deal with massive amounts of power, massive amounts of money, and they can literally be driven insane with, they become perverted megalomaniacs, essentially, sociopaths. If they're not already a sociopath, then this would push them in that direction. There is an insanity that comes with success, and unfortunately, unless people are really aware of it and self-aware, then they're more likely to fall into that trap. And we've all heard the Freudian terminology of the ego and how the ego can ruin your life and controls you, and some people have a bigger ego than other people. Well, this is really how the world works. It always has worked that way. Nothing new here. But nevertheless, people should be aware of it. They should be conscious of it, of the dangers, of the pitfalls. And when we're looking at a volatile area like the Middle East, which is so important to the world's empires, because we really do have a couple of competing empires here. We have the vastly powerful Chinese, the very powerful Russians, and of course the Anglo-American Empire, which is the dominant empire on the planet right now. And they are determined that they are not going to allow those natural resources, and specifically oil in that region, from falling into the hands of a competing power. So they must get control. And this would be for very selfish and unevolved reasons. These people who think they're so superior, they show themselves to not be superior and be the exact opposite of superior when they feel that they have to kill in order to gain those natural resources. There is another way, there always has been another way, but they fail to see it. They are so locked in on one method of accomplishing their ends that they can see no other way. They go through life with blinders on. They do not see the world in 3 dimensions, but in 2 dimensions, much less 4 dimensions, where the really enlightened person will see the world in 4 dimensions. In other words, they will see that there is an invisible power which is working to influence, and because it's invisible, and because it's working on such a profoundly ubiquitous and deep level, that is the true power in the universe. And it's something we can experience, it's something we can enjoy. And that feeling when you're an athlete, and athletes talk about this a lot, of being in the zone, where they cannot fail, where they feel that their arm, if they're a basketball player, is being directed by a force within them, outside them, a mysterious force which puts the ball into the basket, which directs the ball perfectly. That sense of, this is just a small, very tiny piece of a ubiquitous, all-powerful force that every human being can tap into. It's always there, We are always experiencing it. We wouldn't be alive at all if we were not experiencing it. But to be aware of it, consciously aware of it. There's one thing between, we're all unconsciously aware of it, but we need to be consciously enjoying, making an effort. This is a living universe that we live in. We can enjoy it. We can enjoy life. And we will see, once we are awakened, that we have what we need. We have life. We have the essentials. We have the basics. We have everything we require to be fulfilled in our life. And we do not need to kill, to maim, to destroy, to dominate in order to achieve or appreciate or be grateful for life. In other words, to enjoy the essence of being alive. In order to do what we are here on the planet Earth to do, we do not need to join the military, for instance, and essentially destroy our lives. How many people who have joined the military have come out and they are never right again? People who join the military think, apparently, that once they get out, that things are going to be better in their lives. That somehow they will have opened doors for themselves, that maybe they'll have better access to jobs, to success in life, but actually that is not the case. Usually, you are back where you were, and probably worse. If you probably have some kind of disability. I mean, the numbers of veterans coming back with disabilities from the war as a direct, I hate to even call it war, from the adventure for profit, whatever adventure for profit that they've been involved in, not their profit, but someone else's profit. What they come back with is they're toxic. They're mentally toxic, they're physically toxic, they're emotionally polluted, damaged, they're damaged, spiritually damaged by what they've seen, by what they've done, by what's been done to them, and they become a victim. I've seen this over and over and over. I've read about it. I've heard interviews with people. I've talked to people personally who've come back from these areas. And the upshot is that if you kill someone, you are killing yourself. You are going to suffer for the rest of your life for doing that. You're never going to be the same. There's no going back. And yet, our government is asking the American people to become re-engaged, in Iraq, in Syria, in Lebanon, in Iran, and in Libya, and all these places. We're going to see this, we are seeing some of this happen, and we're going to see it happen more, where our taxes are going to be wasted for the benefit of the power elite, a very small group. Those weapons manufacturers, those oil men, those power players, these are high-risk, sociopathic individuals. They thrive on risk. What did Herbert Walker Bush just recently do? And he's 90. What did he do? He jumped out of an airplane to prove that he could still handle the risk, and this was a thrill for him. He wanted that thrill. of that rush of adrenaline of falling out of an airplane. And he wasn't alone. I think he had someone attached to him to make sure everything was okay. But Herbert Walker Bush is the scion of a very powerful criminal family in the United States, globally, great friends with the Saudis, who are, notorious butchers of their own people, criminals. And so this is an example of a risk taker. He cannot not take a risk. He loves danger. He must have his danger fix. And if that means that he, as president or as vice president or as leader or director of the CIA, which is Herbert Walker Bush, George W. Bush's father, was all three of those things. He was a very, very powerful man in American politics. And the danger, he thrives on that. The criminality, that gives him a feeling of a rush, a high. And so here we are today with Dick Cheney having to eat his words about, Iraq being taken to task on the public airwaves, on mainstream media, for advocating and lying to the American people. And, I wonder if he's really feeling bad about what he did to the American people, to the Iraqi people, to the Afghan people, to the people of the world. I don't think so. I don't think he's really capable of feeling any emotion whatsoever about anything that really matters. Now, Hitler apparently liked little dogs and things. He got all soft and cuddly with his little dog and his girlfriend, but he was a sociopath of the highest order. And our modern leaders are not much better. They don't have a problem with killing millions of people. So Syria, the ISIS group, there were key figures in ISIS who were directly armed and trained to use those weapons by the CIA, by American personnel, in order to depose the regime of Assad in Syria. Well, Assad's people are not with this outside group. They're not with this splinter group, this radical group. They're not with them. Actually, it's in numerous groups in Syria, just like the way it always is. You have some of them that are maybe genuinely against the extremities and the violence of the Assad regime. Assad is a dictator. They're against it. Maybe they understand that we need a true democracy in Syria. We're tired of this authoritarian state, which is now in the second generation. Remember, Assad's father actually set up the very, very strict country the way Syria is right now. People have a natural love for freedom, but oftentimes what happens is those truly freedom-loving people are used by powerful forces. They're trained, they're financed, they're given weapons by people who want to use them, and they always get betrayed. Those who are truly freedom-loving and they want an independent country, 9 times out of 10, they're betrayed and taken over and killed after they've done all the hard work. Then they are eliminated, they are liquidated. Those freedom-loving people will become a threat inevitably to the new regime, which is taking over from the old regime, and the new regime is really not going to be different. It's just a different group of authoritarian, control-loving sociopaths. And they understand the threat, because when those people realize that they've been betrayed, they will turn on their former companions and backers and try to take them out too, to get what it is, whatever that freedom and that autonomy that they want, that national sovereignty that they want. Unencumbered by outside influences, by people who do not have their best interests at heart. And so with ISIS, right now, ISIS is a group of Iraqis and Syrians and probably a lot fighters from many other countries linked to Al-Qaeda, linked to the CIA, linked to the U.S. government, linked to the NATO group, and they have decided that they are going to push across Iraq and fulfill their dream of bringing in Sharia law and getting order to their very, very corrupt country. Because remember, the administration, the regime of the American puppet is very corrupt, and he was repressing the Sunni group, just as the Sunnis had suppressed the Shiites when they were in power. And we have to remember that the Sunnis and Shias have been around for a very long time. Although they're extremely similar, their practice of Islam is very similar. Nevertheless, there are some subtle differences. And as human nature seems to dictate, it's very easy to label and demonize one group, and both sides demonizes the other group. One group believes, I saw the percentages and I can't remember what they were, but it's almost like a 50% split between Shias and Sunnis. The Sunnis think that Shias are not true Muslims. The Shias think, or half the Shias think, that the Sunnis are not true Muslims. They're not even true Muslims. And this is how far things have gotten. And amazingly, in a secular society, headed by a secular dictator, you have a semblance of peace, a reasonable semblance of peace, with basically someone like a strong man like Saddam Hussein putting out fires and putting out rebellions against him and crushing them, but realizing that the only way that he can keep his country together is to keep the religion out of the government as much as possible. I mean, even our founders understood this, that this is the way that people get so passionate about their particular version of religion, whether it would be Christianity or whatever, that they actually are willing to go to war and kill or be killed for that belief system that they have adopted or grown up with or born with or whatever. And they identify with this. They identify with their belief system. They are under the delusion that their belief system is somehow them, that it's bound up with the essence of what it is or who it is that they are so much, they identify with it so much that they cannot separate themselves from it. And they are number one as Sunni, number one as Shia. They're not number one a human being. They forget this. They forget that they're a human being. The word human being means so little to them. And this goes not just for Muslims, but for people all over the world, no matter what faith they are, no matter what their belief system is. They forget who they are, and they identify themselves with, well, some people identify themselves with a sports team. I mean, almost to the exclusion of anything else, so that they're walking down the street and they're wearing the emblem of the sports team, on their pants, on their jacket, on their hat. They got it tattooed on their body somewhere even. And that's how closely they identify with that particular group that they have chosen to identify with them. I guess this gives them a sense of belonging, a sense of security. They feel that they at least have their little family that that will be there for them in an emergency. Some people identify with their military group that they have joined. Some guys will tattoo, I don't know, U.S. Army on them, or some eagle, or you know, if it's the Navy, you know, the anchors away, the Yankee, or the Marine Corps. They literally slap this on themselves, and they're the Marine number one. I've talked to many veterans about this, and they at their very core identify themselves as a soldier. I've had them say that, and they live as if they're still in a war zone, but they're just not. They just don't happen to be in a war zone at the moment. But they still have they keep their uniform. They wear parts of their uniform. They're not comfortable if they're not in camo of some kind. They tend to want to live in a rural area because they can't handle the noises. They have PTSD and a car backfiring and they drop to the floor or whatever. And so in order to avoid all that, they move out in the woods somewhere and try to get away from people. This is not the way to live. I've talked to guys who live in the woods because it reminds them of the jungle. They're Vietnam veterans. Takes them back. It's as if those 2 years or those 3 years or those 9 months that they spent in country were the defining moment of their life, and it made them what they are today. Well, this is not who you are. This is not who anybody is. This is something that has been imposed upon us deliberately, and the various military organizations have very sophisticated techniques to break down that personality that we have developed up to that point in our lives and to substitute a new belief system, a new sense of who we are, superimpose it over the old human being, the old human's way of looking at the world, and then utilizing us. We become a tool of that organization that we have joined. And we have to guard against that. It's very important to be a human being first. Number one, who is living, who is breathing, who is aware of the delicate position that we are all in, how close we are to the end. Death always hovers at the shoulder of every human being, of every second of our lives. Our life could be snuffed out. If we stop breathing, that's it. We will die. Life will be over. And something, however, is keeping us breathing. We're asleep. We're still breathing. We're not deliberately doing it, but there is a force, a power that is called life that keeps us going, keeps the heart pumping, keeps the blood circulating, keeps taking in oxygen, giving us messages all the time, communicating. The body is really billions or trillions of individual beings called cells that work together to keep us going, all under the power of life, to give us a sense of self. And it is a amazing organism that we are, self-healing, And so this is really basic, the way that we have to go in life. We need to recognize this. We need to enjoy being alive, and we need to recognize that everything we do, having a job, getting a place to live, getting food, getting clothes, getting a vehicle or the means of transporting ourselves from one place to the other, all this that we do, everything we do is for the purpose of preserving and giving us the means to live, to continue to live for as long as our allotted time on earth is meant to be. And when we look at what's going on in Iraq, and we see the President, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the various heads of the departments, all wondering what to do about Iraq, and saying that we have to fix this, and yet they've tried to fix it over and over and over all these times, and they've not fixed it yet. In fact, if anything, they're just making it worse. And we have to give this up. We have to give up attempting to come to the rescue. This is, in one sense, we're not really coming to the rescue at all, but what we're doing is deliberately meddling in order to keep this area as chaotic as possible. And why would that be? Well, if you ask a returning veteran from Iraq or Afghanistan or somewhere else, what is the name of the war that you just participated in, I doubt if that many of them would know the name of the war. But the name of the war is actually the Long War. Yes, you won't read about it too much in the mainstream media yet. You probably will down the road. But they intend to keep this war going for a very long time. Hence the name, the Long War. They have this all planned out. They want this war to continue to 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And it gives them a cover, a pretext for doing essentially whatever criminal act that they want. So if they decide, if the military-industrial complex, the New World Order, decide that they need to kill X number of people in Iraq, well, it's war, and that makes it legal. Whether it's military or whether it's civilian, it really doesn't matter to them. They are committed to continuing the Long War. They have a plan, they have an agenda, and they will find a way to fulfill that agenda. What is the agenda? Well, General Wesley Clark famously described publicly what the plan was when George W. Bush was president. He was given the directive from Rumsfeld that the plan was to take out 7 countries in 5 years. Now, it didn't turn out to take 5 years. They were not able to take them out. But it was Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, Lebanon, and finally Iran. No, wait, that's only 5. Let's see, Syria, that's 6. I think they said Sudan, and then Iran at the end. Iran was saved for last because that's the big enchilada. Iran is the linchpin, the key to power in the entire Middle East. So they're always working toward this goal, however they can get there. And now we're seeing that the administration of Maliki is collapsing, or is perhaps about to collapse. We'll see how it goes. This whole ISIS movement is is really rolling across Iraq amazingly fast. I was hearing today that they have already captured an enormous refinery, and they have also captured a mothballed weapons of mass destruction installation. These are both military installations. If they can capture an enormous military installation, then what is to prevent them from capturing more cities and eventually capturing Baghdad? Now, Barack Obama has sent 300 advisors to Iraq, and he's probably sent a whole lot more, but they're deciding what to do, and which will probably mean that they will bomb Sunnis, or maybe they won't. Maybe they'll try something else. The way they look at it, they will win no matter what happens. If the present administration stays, they will try to work with them and keep them going in the direction that they want to go. If the present administration in Iraq falls, then they will have to come up with a new plan. But the direction will still be there. Possibly the plan will be to destroy Iraq as it stands and divide it into several autonomous regions. That was one option right back in the very beginning of all this. At the beginning of the George W. Bush administration, back in 2000, that was one option: break Iraq into parts. And that could be the way that it goes. If you do that, then you can work with each individual little government and find a way to extract their resources. Now, some people in Iraq will say, we don't want that. I heard this just today, that will cause incredible amount of bloodshed. Well, for those people at the very top of the pyramid, an incredible amount of bloodshed is not necessarily a bad thing. It clears the decks so that they can get in and grab the oil. What they don't want is for their companies, to lose access to the natural resources. We're seeing the same thing happening in Africa. After the Gaddafi, who was a stabilizing force, was blown out of existence, then you have now Libya, a hellhole in many parts, many, many different groups fighting for control. And they have access to the arsenal of Gaddafi government. And that arsenal is spreading out is taken over by various groups. They're taking those weapons. They're using them in various different countries, including Nigeria, where a small group of radical Islamists have moved in and are now trying to take over that country. And that's destabilizing Nigeria. Nigeria, of course, is rich in natural resources, and it behooves the globalists to destroy the sovereignty of Nigeria. It's in their best interests that Nigeria should be a failed state. This makes it, they can walk in with no opposition and just take whatever they want. And remember, the Chinese have been eyeing Nigeria and many, many different countries in Africa for quite a long time and making deals with those governments. Cash deals, tit for tat trade things, legitimate deals. The Chinese are very clever at this. They are not interested in invading countries. They want to do business. Well, the people in the West, NATO and so on, are so controlled by their military-industrial complex that they don't want to just do business and compete with the Chinese. They want to make it impossible for the Chinese to do business in a peaceful, stable country. and they just want to walk in and take whatever they want. This is the kind of way that the world has been working for a very long time, and so we're just seeing a continuation of these policies. In our own country, the United States of America, we're also seeing a development because for years now, people have been waiting for the next ramping up of the police state, up to the next level. And where is the next level? The next level would be on the level of the retail store, the big box store, the mall, becoming an object in which the customers need to be protected from terrorists, from domestic terrorists. And where are we seeing domestic terrorists? Jared Miller and Amanda Miller, just a couple of weeks ago, demonstrated to the American people very graphically that you are no longer safe when you walk into a Walmart. And how did they do that? They did that by first, and this is mostly Jared Miller, first gaining himself a presence on social media and on television. He showed up at the Cliven Bundy Ranch a few months ago during the standoff between the cattle ranchers and their supporters and the Bureau of Land Management over the grazing rights. This is a long-standing feud which almost exploded into violence. Both sides pointing weapons at each other. The BLM highly armed, ready to defend themselves, but backed off at the last minute when they saw that they were not going to win in a firefight with these very determined Westerners. Well, Jared Miller, this really slimy, creepy-looking felon and probably federal agent, got himself interviewed on NBC in which he threatened to use violence. Well, very shortly after that, the people at the Bundy Ranch were really upset and disturbed by his behavior, by what he was saying, and kicked him off the ranch. And he was furious about this. Hysterical, screaming, and moved on to somewhere else. But he was over and over and over, he made himself a presence that specifically said he would kill cops. He was going to do this. He was going to shoot. He was going to do this. He was going to use violence. He wanted that very much to be a record of him doing that. I don't know who told him to do that or why he did that, because he was definitely taking a risk. There are laws in place that are supposed to protect people from people who make threats like this of violence. Those are very specific laws that were enacted after the Patriot Act that make that a crime. But yet, even though the FBI was informed of him, he was actually they actually spoke with him. Nothing was done. Nobody tried to stop him. Nothing was done. And what happens is he and Amanda go in, and this is a scene right out of Natural Born Killers. They go into a pizza place, supposedly shoot 2 police officers, and then put 2 flags, one on each guy. One guy on the body, they put a Nazi flag, and then the other guy, they put the Don't Tread on Me coiled snake yellow flag. Then they went to a Walmart, and they walked in and started yelling about revolution. And supposedly, there was supposed to be a guy with a concealed carry permit in Walmart. So he steps forward to try to confront Jared Miller, walks by Amanda without realizing that she is with Jared. She shoots him several times and kills him. Then the police surround them, they're trapped, and then they shoot each other. Well, that's what the story was at first. Now I read in a news article that Jared Miller was actually killed by a sniper rifle or some police officer. It was a police officer round. It was not from Amanda Miller's gun. Now, whether or not this is true, we really have to call much of this into question. Anytime we see something like this happen, which is so perfect, which plays directly into the agenda that we've been warned about that would happen, that domestic terrorists were coming, they were going to shoot up malls, they would require checkpoints, they would require screening, TSA agents, Department of Homeland Security, people armed, patrolling public places, sports arenas, Walmarts, Targets, Lowe's, Home Depot, restaurants, on the street, bus depots, train depots, anywhere where people congregate. They want to have a presence. They want to have the scanners set up, the naked body scanners, everywhere, all over the place. So it would become a protected area, a protected zone, and where only the security people would have weapons, but not the private citizen. And we saw in a very, very clear demonstration of the ineffectiveness of a concealed carry individual, that he was not able to stop Jared Miller or Amanda Miller, but was in fact killed himself. And again, we really don't know if any of this really happened. I've seen a couple of frames, a little bit of video, very grainy, out of focus, I don't know why, of surveillance camera of Jared Miller and Amanda Miller supposedly aiming guns at each other. And there's a very calm voice saying, okay, they're aiming guns at her. And now she shoots him, and we see Jared Miller's go down like this. He's on the ground, and he goes just down like that. That's all you see. And then he says, oh, she shot herself. I didn't see that. There's really not much to see. And why is the clarity, why is it so unclear? It's very, very strange. And it seems like a movie to me. It really seems a lot like certain parts of Natural Born Killers. You have a husband and wife team who go crazy. If you remember correctly, if you saw Natural Born Killers, they were the couple were extremely flamboyant. They wore wild outfits. They made crazy pronouncements. They seemed to have almost a supernatural power. They're suddenly experts at killing. They're human killing machines. And Amanda and Jared Miller fall into the same thing. And we're supposed to believe that it's because they listened to alternative media that they became these crazed killers, that incredibly fearless and able to function as assassins, highly trained, ninja style, amazing assassins, lugging around enormous amounts of weaponry and ammo, and walking into a Walmart of all places and screaming that they were going to start the revolution. People who are really insane are typically not very high functioning. And we see this over and over and over. We're told these people are really dysfunctional and really insane, and yet they have the ability to destroy human life that seems to be virtually superhuman. They never miss. They have 100% kill rate. Everybody dies who they come in contact with. So we have to wonder, what is really going on here? Are they part of this narrative that the American people and the world are being fed? The new reality is unrolling just as an ongoing movie for the American people. And the stories are being told. And the latest story that we've been told is Jared Miller. It's amazing. Many people probably have never even heard of Jared Miller and Amanda Miller. They're not really aware of it. It seems like to me that if it were true, it would be almost as stunning and traumatizing as 9/11 was. We know those people truly died at 9/11. We saw them jumping out of the windows. We know that they were killed. That was real. That was traumatizing. For years, even I was traumatized just from watching the video on television. And other people that I know were also traumatized. This is how a real event traumatizes you. But you don't get traumatized by watching a movie. There's something inside of a human being that can tell the difference between fakery and the horrors of reality. I don't think people are particularly traumatized by the Boston bombings. I don't see the same trauma affecting the American people when something like Sandy Hook is discussed. People talk about it as if it were a real thing, but I'm not getting that visceral reaction when people mention Sandy Hook and the Boston bombing. And it's almost as if deep down in your psyche, in your subconscious, in your soul, you're not feeling the disturbance in the force, you could say, to use the analogy of Star Wars. Remember when Obi-Wan Kenobi suddenly it looks like he's, sort of getting sick. He says, I feel a disturbance in the force. As if millions of lives were suddenly snuffed out. And then, of course, it turns out that Alderaan, Princess Leia's homeworld, has been annihilated by the New World Order, by the Empire. And so that his instinct, his feelings were affected. And this is the way real trauma affects people. The phony stuff, it doesn't make a disturbance in the force. Maybe that's what we have to go on as we go through life more and more and more. And we have to try to get in touch with whatever it is that can discern the difference between a narrative that's being rolled out for us and the impact, the visceral impact of true events. And I think as we get in touch with our humanity more and more, we'll become more sensitive. We have to. We have to become more and more sensitive. And it's all part of being alive and increasing our inner awareness of what is alive, what is powering us, what is making us breathe. Why are we breathing? We're breathing. And some energy, some power that's beautiful, that's kind, that's loving, that's caring, that is always right, is pushing our lungs. and it's a pulse. It's the pulse of life. And that pulse started when we were born, and it will stop when we die. And so every breath is a new chance, just like every day is a new day. Every day when you wake up out of sleep, it's like coming alive again. It's like being born into a new day. And the breath is the same way. We can look at life as one long slog, or we can appreciate it and be grateful for what we're being given, because it is a gift by the universe. And that's the beauty of it. That is truly freedom. People talk about freedom a lot in this country, but it's becoming just another buzzword. People don't really know what freedom is. People think that freedom comes with financial freedom, getting to the point where you have enough money to do what you want, to buy what you want, to go where you want. But really, it's the true freedom is to simply be able to appreciate not what we have acquired, but what we've always had. And it's just as simple as that. So I'm about ready to wind it up for another week, and I hope you have a great weekend and all goes well with you, and you enjoy your life. So sleep well, friends. See you next week.